We have 6 pathways going right now, and the students who are presenting today are from the full stack pathway. And in future, we want to expand it so the full stack would become more of a software engineering pathway. This particular team, they worked heavily on full stack design. They're kind of a sub part of the software engineering pathway that we are envisioning for Stemaway.
This is what makes me so excited about hearing the presentations today. I'm going to get to see what you've already done, and so excited about hearing more about what you've accomplished with the Stemaway approach.
My name is Jeremy, and I was a June full stack participant turned full stack lead in July. And as part of the June full stack pathway, we were tasked to work with and develop into the Discourse code base. And Discourse is an open source forum code with a very active community that was founded by Jeff Atwood, who's also the co-founder of Stack Exchange. What Jeff did was take the learning from Stack Exchange to come up with what was to be known as the perfect open source forum code.
You dove into open source. I've done a lot of open source work because Intel's a simple company. We monetize silicon. But you don't use silicon unless you have software that will take advantage of it. So we give away software for free, so you buy the silicon. So nothing better than open source, right? For free software. But to the point that was being made is that it's a huge database, if you will, of code. It actually took an interesting shift. The difference between a hacker and a programmer, right? I found that when open source, a hacker is someone who wants to add value to something that exists. Finding what exists is yet a challenge. But a programmer likes to start from scratch and build it up and nice and clean. What I found is that, the world is switching to hackers, right? We learned Python scripting as your first language now. And I was like, that's not a language in my terms, right? But it's like, no. You want to find someone else's API that already has done 80% of it and modify it. I've always been a hacker. I'm a double E, so my computer programming skills have always been, I'll hack my way to getting something to work. So open source was wonderful, but to your point, as you get into it, you become the expert.
Hi, my name is Solomon Wente. I'm a rising senior in higher institution. I was a participant in the June session and a lead in the July session. I'll be talking on Discourse installation. Setting up a development environment for Discourse on local machine could be challenging, but it is an easy thing to do when you meet up with the requirements and equally follow the guide properly. Each operating system has a specific guide on Discourse installation.
I'm Sion, and I was in the June session for full stack as a participant, and I'm currently in machine learning as a participant for the July session, and I'm going to talk about the project resources. So why is it important to track resources? It's very vital, not just to commit them to records, but also just to acknowledge that our work is a collaboration, not just between the teammates, but also between the large community of developers, because when we would get stuck, we would go to these resources and find out what previous people had done to help our project.
Since you're talking about documentation, there's another mention that we wanted to make, and that's Jan. So she covered the resources in the beginning. All the leads have done an incredible job, but this was a participant who moved up and really did the documentation, which helped the remaining teammates. And the way I noticed it is when the July session was coming up, I was taking all the learning from the June session as kind of a pre-training for the July students. And in full stack, I had to do absolutely no work because there was this one perfect post that had everything.
I'm Mutaz, and I was the full stack pathway lead for the July session, and I was also the project management lead for my team. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how project management worked for us. We were tasked with managing remote teams of around 14 members that are spread out over many different time zones. And we had to establish project scope and specifications and timelines in order to make sure that whatever project we set out to build, we could actually build it within the time that we had and make sure we could work efficiently as a team. So in doing this, we used many different tools. So notably, we used Trello in order to delegate tasks to our members. We used G Suite to organize our meetings and set up our Google Meets, and use Calendar to make sure that the time zone issues wouldn't really have to fall on our heads, because that stuff, simple math can sometimes mess up. We use GitHub to collaborate together for our code base, and we use Slack and Discord to maintain these open communication channels so that our team, even though we had a lot of distance in between us, it could feel like we were still in the same room.
And I am BJ Maharzan, and I'm one of the participants of the Full Stack July team. And I'll be continuing to talk about project management because, as we all know, project management is one of the important topics. So as we all might be aware of, Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos' 2 pizza rule. Like if a team cannot be fed by 2 pizza, then the team is too big. That's it. So we further divided the team into multiple sub-teams, like headed by a lead. So this created a very clear transparency, and there was more interaction between team members.
You guys actually went through a ton of the tools that are used as standard practice, right? Open source community, GitHub, Ruby, scripting languages in general, are just the way clouds work. So it was really great to see all that coming together, as well as your conversations on Agile, right? I have found that the best work gets done when I will make things in 6-week sprints. They're super large programs, so at my level it might be 6 weeks, but as it rolls down, honestly, 6 hours isn't bad, right? It's like, what are you going to do in 6 hours? Spend 2 hours communicating what you've done or what you're blocked doing. And you guys spoke to that. And I think that experience, again, that experience of the internship is just irreplaceable. I could put it in a book. You guys can now write your own book and go, yeah, but until you experience it, you really, you don't have that tangible feel for the challenges of communicating, researching, and still becoming productive.
Soon later, we realized it's a very lofty goal that we've created for ourselves and probably nothing that we can achieve out. And then Deb stepped in and explained to us the idea of impact versus creating stuff, and how your size of the code is not what is more important, and the impact of the code is more important. So she explained to us that we should focus more on the impact of what we're creating versus how, if we create something that revamps the whole thing, people might say that it's something great that you've created, but might not just use it. So you might create something super small, but it can change how people use it and make more impact in their lives. So that's what we set off, and then found one simple problem to work with.
And so this is an example of what we thought was to be something along Deb's vision of creating an impact.
I did want to take a quick second and talk about impact versus development, right? I think there was a conversation, and Debelina stepped in and said, we can work on a lot of things, but which ones will have impact? On many projects, I'll take open source. My team did a lot of Java development, and Java is an entire language. At times we would go through, there was a year where we went through and I think we optimized probably 60% of the code base. And if you look at each one individually, on average, a 10% gain. So then you have the new capability put out there, and people run their Java code, which a lot of scripting languages are built on top of the Java bytecode anyway, and you get 2% improvement. It's like, wow, everybody is so much smarter, it appears, for what they did, the lines of code that they contributed. But in terms of customer impact, 2%, paying people, a group of people, millions of dollars for 2%, there's better ways to make 2%, right? Just buy Tesla stock. No, I'm kidding. It seems to defy gravity, but that's another conversation. It was so important to actually come back and say, what are the 2 things that I can improve by 50% instead of the 50 things I can improve by 2%?
So I'm curious to know, what is the single largest barrier to entry when entering the industry across time zones that you find in your experience, whether it could be communication, but it could also just be time management as well. But I'm just curious to know what most people face whenever they try attempting to take on this challenge. Because I know in my experience, I had no idea what discourse was, but the barrier to entry is that learning curve. That's really steep. And so, yeah.
And it's always wonderful when you have some local expertise to kind of build a beachhead to get things started, and then very often you link those beachheads across the geographies. I think one of the biggest challenges is really, again, it's the communication, but it's communicating the narrative so that whether you're asleep or not, everyone understands why they're doing it and not just what they're doing. When you only understand what you're doing, you just have to be managed, right? And someone needs to be there to make sure you're getting what needs to be done. When you understand why you're doing it, you actually build in your own flexibility on how you get the job done, so that you're like, I think this is the way that this is the way I've been asked to do it, but here's a better way and I'll get it done faster because I know why they need me to do this. That once I've been able to communicate, I call it the narrative of why we're doing the development or what we're building, it goes so much more smoothly. And I know when I've been successful, when people start telling me the narrative as if it was their own and didn't realize that it may have come from me, I'm like, great, I can rest.
I'm returning back to the workforce after raising kids for a long time. And so I contribute to the age diversity around here. And I had just finished a boot camp and wasn't feeling ready yet for the job market. So I was really hoping to find an internship. And like we mentioned earlier, internships are really hard to find. And in my case, I think they might have been a little harder because I wasn't currently a student. So that's why I really appreciate Stemaway, because I got a chance to have an internship in my situation. And I saw a link on a JavaScript Facebook group about Stemaway. So that's how I heard about it. And in June, I did the UX internship, and I had been intending to do the web dev or full stack one, but in the back of my mind for the past several months, I've been wondering if UX would indeed be a better career fit for me. So Stemaway gave me a great opportunity to try UX.
Michael, I just wanted to let you know, Stemaway is built entirely on top of discourse. So everything. So like you, I'm also not, my background is hardware engineering, and I'm a hacker in software. So the way I built Stemaway, found the best open source discourse, and that is it. So everything on Stemaway is actually built on top of discourse. It's also actually the one open source community where this is totally not, it's a totally side point, but it's the first time I was in an open source community where they didn't address me as sir. This 2 years I've spent building Stemaway. I've been very, very active in different open source communities, and it's always like, sir, thank you for your comment, or thank you for your feedback. Discourse was the first one where it didn't have that issue. Doesn't bother me, but it was just a kind of an interesting side note.
It is that's a very good side note. I think we talk inclusion and diversity, right? But it shows up in our everyday actions, and it's really simple. When Kristen said she's going back to the workforce, and I was like, being a mom is a really tough job, and you're shifting career goals perhaps, but you have never stopped working. I could tell by the amount of work that you guys have gotten done in very short summer. It's quite impressive. And the fact that your teams are global, many people don't have global experience until they are really mature in their careers. That this is not just about internships for people coming out of college, but it's an internship for anyone who wants to be brought up to the state of the art quickly. And I think that was cool to see that diversity of the players represented.